Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewy. How are you, love?
Kia ora, Pats. I am very good.
Things going well? Having a good time? Looking good? Feeling good?
Aggressively medium. Things are okay. Weirdly warm in Dunedin today.
Yeah, I went and picked up a kid from. I picked up a kid from the CBD, but the Oval where their boyfriend was playing soccer today. Took the dog at 5 o'clock. Oh, sorry. I know why you're here, people. Took the dog to have a run around the Oval at 5 p.m. 14 degrees on the way home. So yeah, it was a weirdly warm one. It was nice.
The world is dying,
and I'm hearing that snow is going to be coming. So maybe it's the literal calm before the storm. Calm before the storm. Matthew Tukaki is going to be joining us in just a couple of seconds. We've got a couple of things we're going to talk about. One is the thing that's happening with ACT at the moment. They are raising money to help spread the message of the treaty's principal bill in mainstream media. It's something like that. It's kind of weird that they would push to raise money to tell people about a bill they want to pass. But anyway, the other thing, Chewy, we're going to do is we are going to talk about the apology by the Prime Minister today about the abuse and care. And I want to talk to Maddie specifically about the situation that was shown on One News with Māoridom and what it means for Māoridom and what it means as a kind of the beginnings of gangs and how it's in conflict with the treaty. And whilst we are going to be congratulatory of the Prime Minister tonight for the statements he made today, we're also going to go, Mr. Luxon, can you wake up and see the connection here between gangs and harm caused to them in the last 50 years and maybe start focusing on that? Rather, I thought we might get Harry Tam on tonight. I didn't contact him at the time. Maybe we'll see if Harry wants to come on tomorrow night. But because I think that if we all look to it, if Mr. Outcomes is looking towards a good outcome, you know, we should be approaching this from a way that's going to give us the best outcome, and just ignoring all that systemic abuse and, you know, driving people through the justice system is not the way to get you to the solution you want, Mr. Luxon. So that's what we're going to talk about as well. We're also going to talk a bit about the working group. Craig Renney had a good fun time there, laying the smack down on. And I want to have a quick look at Kamala Harris and what's happened in the last 24 hours and the record fundraising. Now, I've got a little vignette for you, a little aperitif, a little taster for you, because it is fun now that the internet's so great. So 20 years ago, you know, you wouldn't have got all the old adverts coming out from when Donald Trump ran against Kamala Harris, you know, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, 8 years ago. But now all you got to do is put it on YouTube and it gets seen by millions of people. This is this new media sort of thing. Not that YouTube's really new media anymore. And this is from the Jimmy Kimmel Show. You'll like this. And it's just a bit of a look at the difference between Barack Obama and Donald Trump in just one little instance. Have a listen to this, Fano.
The United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
The United States launched a targeted operation against that compound.
They did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
After a firefight,
genius.
They killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
He died like a dog.
But his death does not mark the end of our effort.
A beautiful dog, a talented dog.
We give thanks for the men who carried out this operation.
And I don't get any credit for this, but that's okay. I never do. But here we are.
May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
And I'm writing a book. I think I wrote 12 books. All did very well.
The United States.
Honestly, we got to keep playing them. We've just got to keep playing them and playing them and playing them and reminding people of the difference between their choices in America. Well done, Farnell. whānau. Alrighty, now let me also say before we start, huge thanks to all of our patrons. Love you guys to bits. If you want to be a part of what we do, if you want to help us like spend time finding silly clips like that, then you can be a part of our team. Jump on to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Very grateful to all of our people who come on board and chuck us $5 here or there. It does genuinely make quite a big difference. And we're also looking for a new theme song, which we're giving away $500 for. And at the end of the show, if you're new to us, the end of the show, we play credits, and the credits also scroll with all of our patrons. So you can be a part of the show every single night, and you can also help behind the scenes with what we're doing as well. Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. That's me, Chewy. You ready to rip and roar, or should we?
Let's kick this pig and make it squeal.
A little birdie told me that Matthew Tukaki has just been speaking to the BBC. Is this true, Matthew? Have you just been speaking to the BBC, and did you cut them short to come and speak to us?
Well, I mean, anyone who plays a video like I just watched, and he died like a dog, and now I'm writing a book.
Isn't it just? I mean, when you see it like that next to each other, and you see statesman and you see rodeo clown, you know, you just go, come on, look, people. Oh my goodness.
I put on a barbecue and I got myself a goanna and I threw it on there by the tail, and now I'm writing a book. And by the way, the dog is dead.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Got a couple of things we want to talk to you about. Do you need a minute? You know, a moment.
I just love that.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We got here to talk about a couple of things. The first one we want to talk about is the ACT Party and what they're up to at the moment with the Treaty Principles Bill. It's a strange thing because they're doing a bit of a donation run. Now, I guess the pessimist in me, or the whatever it means when you don't want to trust someone, goes, are they literally just using it to put some dollars in the account, or do they have a plan here? Do they need money? Well, you know, maybe they need a bit more than all their Atlas money to actually get some ideas out there into the public. I read a little bit of this article from the NZ Herald. Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngārewa-Packer said an ACT email calling for donations to back a mainstream media discussion over its Treaty of Waitangi Principles referendum shows that not even David Seymour and his party members have faith in this being accepted by the majority of New Zealanders. Yesterday, ACT sent an email to its supporters seeking financial support for its Treaty of Waitangi Principles referendum. Seymour told the Herald that $30,000 has been raised. We had one person give $1,000. Most people gave kind of 20 to 25, he said. Seymour says our opponents are desperate not to have an open debate about what the treaty means. They don't want to be forced to say they think the treaty requires different treatment of different citizens based on your ancestry. Seymour said the treaty, in ACT's view, gives self-determination and gives the same rights and duties to all New Zealanders, no matter what their racial background may be. He said the party is very eager to have that debate. I hadn't picked up on that. As soon as we have that debate, he says, the overwhelming number of people, Maori and Pākehā, are on our side. But we need to get to the debate out there in favour, and we're in favour of an open debate. Two more little bits here, guys. Seymour also had a message for Debbie Ngārewa-Packer. I want them to come and have an open discussion, he said. Do they believe the treaty means different New Zealanders have different rights based on ancestry? Sorry, that was my Jeremy Clarkson. In the world. If they believe it gives different people different rights, where in the world is an example where this operates that way successfully? Where in the world? Ngārewa-Packer said the email showed ACT does not have the support it thought it did to make the Treaty of Waitangi principle changes. What it shows is the ACT Party has no confidence in their coalition party agreement or its ministers. It shows just how desperate they are. They have front row seats in the government, but really have no confidence in this referendum agreement or their own ministers. ACT must be desperate to resort to this. So, Matthew, I think they're doing the first reading, or it's being presented at the House. They're doing something with the bill this week. As a starting point for the conversation, what are your thoughts around what's going on at the moment?
I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack in that very rabid article by Joe Losey. The simple fact is, I think what he's trying to do is look across the Tasman and play the Voice to Parliament playbook that the No campaign was trying to play. The No campaign raised about $13 million to fund their campaign, which was way less than half of what the Yes campaign made. Now, I don't think Australia and its different culture is the same as here. I don't think that Yes campaign was going to make it originally, and in fact, it was probably well short. So David's looked across the Tasman and he thought, oh, well, we've got an opportunity here. The other similarity is if you have a look at the donors that were donating to the No campaign, they were small mum and pop investors or donators. Very, very few, if not any, large corporates or large money spinners were giving to the No campaign. And that's probably because they thought it was a wise bet not to give to something that they knew was probably going to flog a dead horse. And that's what's happening here in New Zealand. You're seeing small donations coming in, and that's not to be unexpected when you have a look at the base of the ACT Party. They're only going to get $20 here, $30 here, $50 there. They're not going to pull in hundreds of thousands of bucks. And if they've only raised $30,000, that's not going to get them very far with an ad campaign in mainstream media.
Yeah.
They're probably going to try and do what the No campaign in Australia did and fund some sort of venture into social media. That's the first thing. The second thing is David raises a stupid point. Show me anywhere in the world. He raises a few stupid points. Tell me anywhere in the world where this sort of rights for an Indigenous people, as an example, or a people of colour or whatever, works. Well, actually, affirmative action since the civil rights movement of the 1960s in the United States has worked. If you have a look at the number of Black Americans and Native Americans who have gone on to become doctors and teachers and nurses and gone to university and so on and so forth, if you even have a look at the number of people in that cohort that have gone on to significant representative roles, all you have to do is have a look at Kamala Harris's parents who were involved in the affirmative action and the civil rights movements of the 1950s and 60s. Then also have a look again just over the Tasman at what's gone on with affirmative action and the rise in numbers of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples through university and so on and so on. So David must live in a land where fantasy rules, where you pop some Skittles in your mouth and shit a rainbow. It's just not a thing. The third part is that if I was to Party Māori, I wouldn't debate this issue with the ACT Party. And in fact, I don't think it's wise to even open up a discussion with the ACT Party. That's what David wants, because David's really good at coming across as a bit of a Teflon Don salesman. I think we should accept that the ACT Party has reached its formative base, so not going to get any higher. They're scouting around for issues where they're trying to get others to come on the walker with them. They can't, any way possible, now step themselves into the immigration debate. Winston's cornered that market. Yeah. And so he's just scratching around. I mean, we've seen the heights of the ACT Party, I think, in New Zealand, and this debate is probably going to do more to see some more moderates in the party start questioning whether or not they continue in this current direction. Also, sorry, if I can just add, they'll probably do what the No campaign in Australia do, go and find a house brown. And by that I mean there was an Aboriginal lady called Jacinta Namabinja who's been elected to the Senate on the right side of politics. She was the poster child, as was Warren Mundine, but we all know that both Warren and Jacinta are right-wing flunkies. So it could very well be that David is searching for that house brown to go and tick some boxes. But here's the problem that David's also got. I know a lot of the people on the right who are also Māori. Hell, some of them are my cousins. No one wants a bar of this, whether it be on the left or the right, when it comes to Te Ao Māori. So I think this is the problem with smart people who think they're too smart. They outsmart themselves ultimately, and I think I think that's what's going on here. If that all makes sense.
It's that idea of people who are smart enough to get themselves in trouble, but not smart enough to know when they're in way over their heads.
Well, it's the whole adage, hey guys, about buying into your own PR. You believe yourself so much. Next minute, you're wrapped in gold and flying with silk tails, but it's still a skittle you put in your mouth and you shed out the rainbow out the back. It's not a real thing. Unicorns are not real.
What I hear you saying is you think they've reached critical mass already, and they need to go find more. Chewy, thoughts, mate?
We had another term when you'd say that someone liked their own PR. He loves the smell of his own fart. And look, I think drawing a line between what Seymour is trying to kick off here and what happened over in Australia, with the voice is very, very accurate, because Atlas had their fingerprints all over that as well. And that kicked off an incredibly ugly debate. And that was, we always say Australia's a little bit behind us on race relations, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But that was hideous. It was hideous to watch. And the thought of the same thing here happening just makes my blood run cold. What David seems to do is always make that analogy of, guys, I'm just saying that everyone's equal and there's nothing wrong with that. What if it was the Scottish? Or, I saw him talking in a piece today about stopping people or having karakia at the start of the day. And he goes, you wouldn't be able to do a Catholic ritual. You wouldn't be able to do like a Japanese ceremony. And he can't be that stupid. He can't be, surely. A religious thing. Karakia is not necessarily religious.
No.
And the Japanese didn't sign a treaty with the crown. And that's also, the difference. He's drawing that line of saying, well, you wouldn't see this anywhere else in the world.
Can I just quickly jump in and say something? I think the next stage of this is where the government is afraid to go, and that is the market called fact-checking and truth-telling. And so when he's out there talking about and trying to swan around with his silver tongue and his Teflon suits about the Te Tiriti o Waitangi and Article 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, he picks and chooses things that come out of the treaty. And then I think the problem that he's facing here in New Zealand is the Treaty of Waitangi and jurisprudence around Te Tiriti o Waitangi, particularly through the court system over more than 100 years now, is against him. And there's more people out there that understand that jurisprudence. I mean, Chris Finlayson is absolutely mortified by what's going on. John Key, Jim Bolger has been out there recently. So, I actually think, sorry to interrupt you before, Cherie, but I honestly think that as a country of fact checkers, a lot more so than maybe our Australian brethren were, that's the hole that David's going to find himself in. Sorry.
That's all right. No, I was also going to say, Chewie, the point you made about you couldn't have a Catholic one and you couldn't have a Japanese one. It's like, well, if you went somewhere like Argentina or Italy, or you were in Rome where it actually kind of was the culture, then you could. So having a karakia in New Zealand where it is the culture means you can. If you're in Japan, you could have some kind of Japanese opening to whatever the meeting is because that's indigenous or native to that country. Like a karakia is here as well. So I think it's a stupid argument. And I guess I'm still wondering if either of you guys have an opinion on this. Is this for reals? Like, does he believe this shit? Or is he setting up himself for something in the future, something else he's going to do? Or does he genuinely and honestly believe this nonsense he's spouting?
Well, see, I think we've also found the point of critical mass of the personality of David Seymour. There is no future career for David Seymour after reaching the heights of acting Prime Minister of New Zealand. It's not as if he has enough credibility in other markets, unlike people that flow from Australia into the conservative movement in the United States or the UK over to the US and so on and so forth. He's done his time in Canada. We've all seen that accent unfold online. So there's that part of it. The second part is too, we're talking about David Seymour. We're not talking about the ACT Party. And the reason being that the ACT Party is David Seymour. They are now indistinguishable from each other. We're not seeing the other members of the ACT Party out there holding press stand-ups or press conferences. We hear zero from Nicole McKee or Brooke Van Belden, really. And I suspect he's probably suppressing that. And I don't think that's a strategy that's going to work for him.
But the point, we could almost do a hashtag Where's Brooke, because she was out a lot at the beginning of this cycle, but now hashtag Where's Brooke? We've said this a couple of times. Where has she been? What is she up to? So it's a very interesting point whether that's the absolute plan, because maybe Brooke doesn't believe quite the same BS that he's spouting, and if she got challenged about it in public, she may not follow the party line. I think she probably would, but maybe it's too much of a risk.
Well, that's right, because if you're Brooke Van Velden, you're going to want to hold the seat of East Tamaki as much as for as long as you possibly can. The demographic of East Tamaki is much more nuanced than the seat of Epsom, where it's all Beamers and now Teslas and all this other sort of nonsense crap. So Brooke Van Velden is young. She's probably going to want to stay on this a little bit longer. I just don't think that we're seeing growth beyond where they currently are with the ACT Party and David Seymour. And you know what? New Zealanders are not dumb. They're not stupid. I mean, in fairness, the Labour government lost government in my mind purely because people were tired of COVID. They were over it. And you know, people that are in that mood are always going to opt for some sort of change. I think a lot of New Zealanders, whether it be what's going on with Health New Zealand, are mortified. And sorry, just before I forget, the other person that's going to be put back in her box any minute now that the Royal Commission is over is Karen Shaw. I mean, you wouldn't roll Karen out on Q&A, for example, to talk about evidence and, anecdotal evidence suggests. Let me tell you about a story about old mate down the road. New Zealanders don't buy into that for very long.
Yeah. No, Chewy, we're going to move on to the other subject, and I've got some super chats to do first. But before we cut out, do you want to add anything else to this particular conversation?
I would love to talk to David Seymour and literally just ask him, do you believe this? Do you believe this, or is this just a method that we've seen in other countries with Indigenous populations to drive a wedge between First Peoples and everybody else? Because it seems that the people that he associates with, that's their modus operandi everywhere, Canada, Australia, and here. Do you believe it, or is it a political angle?
Yeah.
And if it is, either way, do you recognize the damage that it's doing?
I think it's such a good question. I don't know if we get an answer for that. Some super chats that have come in. Thank you, guys. Tawhiri says what he means by an open debate is he'll fast track it before anyone can talk on the debate, just like they do with everything else. It's all PR. We said last night, Matt, that one of the things that this government's doing is their targets always seem to be, we're going to hit budget and we're going to speed up the process. And I was like, that doesn't make for good policy. If the only thing you're worried about is the budget and getting it done quickly. I will give a little bit of a bouquet to the current national government. Hearing Luxon speak today about the abuse situation, and he's basically said, money's no object. We're going to take much time as we need. It sounds like the opposite. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like good policy, because it's sort of the opposite of what the rest of their governance has been about. So I hope that does go through with that. Ruru, thank you for the super chat. It says different people, different rights. The devolved parliaments in Great Britain is largely successful. Kiwi Bird, thank you for the super chat. Here is our no campaign. If you don't know, vote no for David Seymour's treaty principles. Oh, that's not bad. And this is something that runs through our show. Matt, don't consider this to be strange, because Peter just wanted to remind everybody that David Seymour is an example of the worst kind of person in the world. And Gold wanted to say there is no future for David Seymour because he is the worst example of humanity out there. that flows through our show a little bit here and there. So, yeah. Hey, listen, I'd like to get onto this next subject with you before we let you go, Matt. I want to play this because, as I said, and people may or may not believe this, but we give bouquets when they're when people deserve them, no matter where they are. And the Prime Minister did really well on a good portion of this conversation today around the history of abuse in the state system. Have a listen.
And finally, the truth's been tabled. 14 kilograms of harrowing accounts and sweeping calls for change. The magnitude of it all absorbed by survivors from the public gallery.
Many of your stories are horrific and harrowing. They are painful to read, but not nearly as painful as they were to endure.
The Prime Minister will make a formal apology in November, but one was made today.
Today I stand humbly before you in this House to offer a long overdue apology to the survivors of Lake Alice. I am sorry that it has taken so long for this acknowledgement of torture.
It was the party opposite that ordered the inquiry, but it didn't implement the interim recommendations to start a redress scheme.
But, Prime Minister, we didn't do enough. And the ball now falls to you and your government. This must be bigger than politics.
The Prime Minister says cost isn't a barrier.
We're going to do it right. It's important that we address this up and we do the very best that we can around redress. It's not about the dollars.
The final report.
So there you go. That was. We're going to play another clip as well to do with the effects on Maori through this. But first of all, either of you guys, I don't know if you've seen all that or not. I would say congratulations to the Prime Minister. Well done, well set up. I hope you knock it out of the park. Come time for settlement or whatever it is. But it's a good start. So congrats where congrats are due. The appropriate response, and we will support him as the Labour Party are doing in what they're doing at the moment. Matt?
Yeah, if I could just, first of all, disclosure, I'm an original member of the Taumata of the Royal Commission with Neville Baker, Liz Mellish and Sharon Hawke. So I've been involved from the very beginning, and then I only left when I became the chairman of the Ministry for Children, that other hateful organisation, otherwise known as Oranga Tamariki. And so, I really do hope that this isn't about the dollars and cents, because this is where the Australian Royal Commission got so bogged down in redress. And it got to the point where you had faith-based organisations in Tasmania halting the sale of assets to include the sale proceeds into redress schemes, but it never quite came off. So I think that's where a lot of these people really are at. One of the guys in the image or the video footage you just played is somebody that I know very, very well. His name was Paul Zentfeld, who was the champion of what happened at Lake Alice. And Paul and I, we've had our dust-ups, but my God, what a champion. And so people like Paul are now wanting to know, well, what next? Because it's really important for them, because in the interviews today and also in the statements made by a lot of people today, there was a reflection of the more than 250,000 people that have been abused in state care and faith-based organisations between 1950 and 1999. That's a figure that a lot of those people have now passed on. And a lot of their families are now living with the fight and the memory. One of the examples in Te Ao Māori is with the Waitangi Tribunal claim process around what we call the Taonga Claim Y262. That's been around for a very long time. It's never been dealt with by the Crown. And a lot of the original, in fact, all the original claimants are now dead. And the claim has been inherited by their whānau. What I would hate to see is that sort of redress scheme inherited by future generations. So it would be good to see all of them now back up their words by supporting each other across the parliament. I think we all would agree that what has happened in this country over the last not only 50 years, but even to this day, is just evil writ large.
Yeah, Chewy.
The thing that hit me is when they weighed them.
Yeah, 14 kilos.
14 kilograms of some of the most harrowing stories.
And actually, Chewy, just if you could just pause for a sec. Just pause for a sec. So I think they spoke to 2,300 people, and that was 14 kilograms. Remember, as Matt just said, there was 250,000. So imagine what it would be. It would be 100 times that heavy if everyone had told their story. So imagine that.
And can I just also share with you guys, this wasn't just about people wanting to share these stories and have their voices heard and their evidence. When I sat through a lot of the hearings in Auckland, and you saw them supported by their sons, their daughters, their grandchildren, their family members, their loved ones, their partners. And it wasn't just here in New Zealand. We had New Zealanders living in Australia coming home to give evidence in New Zealand. It was just absolute. It was more like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but we haven't quite got to the reconciliation yet.
Yeah. Sorry, Chewy, we both interrupted you. You're talking about the weight of the papers.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, look, this has been a long time coming. The abuse and state care stuff has left such a psychic scar on this country that those state institutions just caused absolute mayhem on people that were made wards of the state or were put in borstals or all of that sort of thing. We are still, to this day, dealing with the fallout from those organizations. And whoever was going to be at the wheel, whoever was going to be at in the Prime Minister's seat at that point would have to read out that apology.
Yeah.
I guess, you did say, look, we're going to recognize that the words out of Luxon were good. But does he feel it? The man hasn't been part of government for very long. And he has spent the last 6 months going absolutely hell for leather on boot camps and expanding prisons. That really takes away from it for me.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Joey. And it's what we're going to kind of get into next. It's a really good point. And like in this clip that we're about to play coming up now, Erica Stanford's at the presser, and you can see she gets choked up. I mean, I got choked up watching it. I'm feeling choked up right now, knowing what I'm about to watch for a third fucking time. And you can see that she's feeling it. And I understand what you're saying. I think at the moment, what I'm going to do, and I think what we will put out there officially, is that he's saying the right things at the moment to get to the end of the process. But there's so much stuff that this government has done, and even in this clip, we're going to see it, that they then kind of hold at arm's length. And I'm thinking about issues around Māoridom. They hold at arm's length some issues that if you could see how to enmesh this whole conversation, you might find a fucking answer. But at the moment, you're saying the right words, like you say, Chewy, but there's other parts of that would be a part of this conversation, and meshing them together to get an overall picture, holistically, you might say, that they're not going to address. So how will we ever solve this? I mean, you guys are welcome to respond to that first before I push play or whatever.
Yeah, can I? Maybe I'll go first if that's all right, Chewy. One of the last jobs I did before getting sick and leaving the Ministry of Health was being responsible for the Coronial Investigations Review. And so in my time, I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of coronial reports. And these are the deep dive forensic investigations into why somebody took their own life. And these are stories, just very similar to some of the stories that you'll hear or read in the evidence and the documents that are going to be produced as a result of the Royal Commission. And they tell a story about the how this all started. And if I was to liken it to a business conversation, it's about supply chains. Something starts somewhere. Somebody's life goes off the rails for a purpose. And what we fail to do as a society is we fail to recognize when we can step in, intervene, support them, prevent the inevitable sometimes from happening. Instead, we take a very clinical approach to these things. And that's what I heard from Luxon today, to be honest. I heard a very clinical approach to how we're going to deal with it. It's like the robotics of middle management. We'll find the money. Well, if you can find the money, why are we sacking all these people, which is just going to create more havoc and more chaos in people's lives? Why are we doing what we're doing to send people down rabbit holes? And the point I'm trying to get to is also about the gangs and so on and so forth. Well, you know, when you read some of the stories of gang members who have been abused in state care, who have had their lives ripped apart, and as a result are in the position that they're in. Now, admittedly, not every gang member has been in that position, but my God, a lot of them are. And not just gang members, but, you know, I visited the youth detention centre in the Hawke's Bay as part of my role as chair of Oranga Tamariki. There were 19 boys behind the wire. Yes, I'd committed some horrendous crimes, but when you sit down with those, and they were children, you know, I'll never forget when I asked them the question, what brought you in here? I won't go into the why they were there, but, you know, a lot of them just wanted their mums. They just wanted their mothers. And what was terrible about it is a lot of those kids had already got their first kid themselves. So all we're doing is repeating the same process. Now, that youth detention centre is in the Mangaroa adult prison complex. So all we're doing is furthering the aspiration of supply chains and providing more numbers into the adult prison system by not stopping what's going on. We're feeding the beast. Mm-hmm. Sorry, but I just saw him as a robot.
Yeah, fair enough. Chewy, before we play the bit, anything?
I saw a story about the first intake for the boot camps. 9 out of 10 of the kids that are going to this are Maori. So, you know, straight away there, I don't trust it. I don't trust the state to learn lessons from this sort of stuff. It went on too long. And it we get us hard on for punishment rather than stopping it from happening in the first place. The money that is being poured into prisons, we've said this again and again and again in the show, should be poured into schools, should be poured into communities, should be poured into the people that are on the front line that go, we deal with these people every day. We see the cycle. If you can identify the cycle, you can fucking break it.
That's right. You've got to find circuit breakers, true. You've got to find circuit breakers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And every time we get a right-wing government, they're like, no, lock them up. I mean, I forget what minister it was, proudly posting up pictures within the last week of a youth detention centre or some secure facility for youth, going, look at these wonderful modern facilities. And I saw pastel paint and heavy steel doors. And she's focusing on taking pictures. One of the inmates had made a lovely array of cookies, but all the windows were barred. Every door had a huge lock on it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what color paint you put that in. You're locking a kid in a room.
Yeah.
Someone whose brain isn't developed 100% yet, whose decision-making process isn't set in stone. And suddenly you take that away from them. You'd lock them in a room while they're still developing. It's not the solution. That's because we know that because it hasn't fucking solved it. But we're not brave enough to try something else.
There was 3 parts to the news tonight. There was the general covering story. Then there was the bit about the religious institutions and how terrible they've been, worse than the state in these situations. And then there was also, which is a part of my heritage. I grew up in the Catholic Church and family was in the Catholic Church, went through Catholic boarding school. So, I'm keen as mustard to delve deep into that at some stage as well, because it's just shocking. It's just a shocking situation. But we'll have a look at this section. The other section was what happened to Maori in the system. And Chewy, you talked about abuse in the past tense. There is a gentleman, a young fella in this who's just come out of the system, and he makes very clear this didn't stop in 1999. The abuse that's happening in care. So let's have a look at this story, and then we'll have a chat about it, and then wrap up with you, Matthew.
Maori children made up the majority of those in state care, with the inquiry finding they were also more likely to be sent to harsher institutions. Maori and Pacific survivors also endured higher levels of physical abuse, breaching the Treaty of Waitangi and giving rise to gang membership. Political editor Mikey Sherman reports.
This is the part that Luxon's missing right now. Not wanting to talk to the Harry Tams of the world, cracking down on, locking people up, cracking down on gangs. Until you address this part of the equation, there's going to be no solution.
The rise of gangs in New Zealand between the 1950s and 1980s can be traced back to state care abuse, which many survivors say was a pipeline to prison.
When I went into the prison the first time, I'd never been there before. But we get into the yards and 80% of the people, it's because we all grew up together and we were brought up together in state care.
Rawiri Waretini Karena isn't a gang member, but having entered state care at the age of 5, by 17 he was convicted of murder.
I take full responsibility of my actions, but there were things that happened in state care which also contributed to the environment that I was brought up in.
The Commission found between the 1950s and 80s, Māori experienced heightened state surveillance and targeting by New Zealand police and other government agencies.
We are determined that gangs cannot peddle harm and suffering on their fellow citizens. We will continue to work with making sure that they have an opportunity to turn their lives around through rehabilitation.
So that's the part that he will get the brick back again. So it's like, if you cannot see that the exact inquiry you're going through today and apologising for has a direct link, if not is the direct reason for the issues that you're seeing with gangs today, Mr. Luxon, then there's no helping you. Then you are not a person of outcomes. You're a person of meanness and retribution and all sorts of other words for putting the knee on the neck of people, but you're not looking for the best outcome because you're not using the best, you're not taking the best path to get to those outcomes. Sorry, this has got about 60 seconds, guys. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Māori children are still overrepresented in care today.
I believe it's 67% of young people in care are Māori.
Ihorangi Reweti Peters came out of state care in October.
Abuse did not stop at 1999. It is still happening.
Is there work that needs to be done? Yes. And I set those expectations.
The Minister says greater devolution to community is the solution, but with continued state oversight.
I think it's actually disgusting that my job does have to exist.
Erica Stanford spoke of the young unwed pregnant mothers in care.
That were deliberately underfed because they wanted to have easy births and small babies. And then they drugged them up and they took their babies. They never got to hold them. That is confronting.
Stripped of their culture and care, Māori have intergenerational scars.
It disconnects you from your language, from your culture, from your heritage. It disconnects you from the land of the whenua.
Rawiri now holds a PhD and works as a tertiary lecturer, a rare triumph in a tale of sorrow.
Yeah.
Matthew, floor is yours.
Guys, I've sat down with each one of those people that were interviewed by TVNZ in that piece. Ihurangi Rewiti Peters is an outstanding young man, and Rawiri was one of the first in a group of people that I met. I think, to be honest, I'm not going to say that gangs are good. They're not. But in all the gang members that I sat down with, I remember Johnny Apatu and Rex Timu in the Hawke's Bay, Martin Kaipo, a former gang president up in Whangarei, in Otangarei. And you sit down with these people and they're just like your father. They're just like your dad. They've just had a shit life. But each one of them was in search of something that they were taken away from. And in many ways, gangs have been created as a result of that missing link being whānau and family. And so that you search for something to attach yourself to. And that was the story that I heard writ large. And so when, you've got a double narrative going on here, you've got a narrative saying, oh, we'll fix this. I'm from middle management. I'm going to sort this out. Everyone's going to move forward together. Kumbaya. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Because the second narrative is this. We're going to bust those gangs and we're going to send them all to prison and we're going to lock them all up and throw away their key and bugger this and bugger that. Well, okay, so what are we doing to change to circuit break the whole thing? We're not. But just reverting to form. And the other thing too, compensation is not going to resolve the issue of people over multiple generations being ripped from their families. The number of children in state care that were Māori when I was there was 67%. That was in 2022, 2021, 2022. Ihurangi is absolutely right. And if in the last government they had been able to get their extension as a Royal Commission, I think they were seeking more funding, then they could have picked up a whole lot of other people from 1999 to 2021, 22. Whether or not New Zealand is ready for the Band-Aid to be ripped back off not only our past but our present, I'm not too sure. But certainly that abuse has not stopped. All you have to do is have a look at the reports coming out of the Independent Children's Monitor to know what's been going on recently.
Yeah, I've got nothing else really to add to what Matt's just said. Chewie, you want to jump in there? You're more than welcome.
That statistic of how many Māori make up kids in state care, that poses a particular question. And for some people, they'll take it as, what's wrong with Māori?
Yeah.
Why do they keep on getting put in state care? It's never a question of what's wrong with society that means that so many Māori end up institutionalized in these machines that just turn out hard, broken people. We haven't looked at that at all.
No, a lot of it comes down to a combination of both conscious and unconscious bias. So if you're a social worker going into the home of a Māori and you see 6 kids sleeping in the lounge, sometimes that's how we sleep on the marae. But somebody who's not familiar with that environment sees poverty straight away. Well, no, that's just how things are, not in a bad way or a negative way. The other thing that I find really fascinating, just to back up and reinforce what I'm saying about the present, you'll see on the news recently about the New Zealand police admitting that the photos that they've been taking of young offenders that was brought up in the Wairarapa in relation to the majority of them being Māori have not been disposed of. So the police have been continuing their behaviour right up until, obviously the last couple of years as well. And so it takes 2 things to happen. Number one, cultural change at the individual and societal level of New Zealanders saying, yeah, we're just not going to see people through the lens that we used to in the 50s and 60s. And the second one is our institutions need to change the lens that they see Māori through as well. And I get so pissed off. I'm sorry. I'm just going to fucking say it. I get so pissed off with people who see Māori through the lens of a deficit model. Not every Māori is on the unemployment benefit. Not every Māori smacks their kids and throws them against walls. We don't all sit around smoking dope and playing the guitar, drinking crates of booze and beer. That's university students down in fucking Dunedin. You know, the vast majority of Māori are in the middle class. We pay mortgages, we pay rates, we shop like everybody else does at Countdown. We worry more about the cost of bucking eggs than we do about a packet of cigarettes, for crying out loud. And so I just wish that people would stop casting us about as some sort of drummed up losers who always just talk about colonization as being our lot in life. Fuck. Over it.
Yeah.
All right, that was my rant.
No, you're allowed.
It was a good one.
We're encouraged.
Yeah, it was a good one. You can take the official ginger rant hat for the night. Maybe that can be yours. Hey, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. It's always the way with us. We can come and join for us for 10, 15 minutes. 43 minutes later, we're still talking about it. So we thank you for your grace with us and just to be able to hang out. And when we don't have the answers ourselves, which is most of the time, we do love getting people like you on who can provide them for us. So thanks so much for being a part of us tonight.
Anytime. Can I just put a plug in for your theme music?
Yes.
10 guitars or knock 3 times on the ceiling in the morning. Twice on the pipes, boys. Have a great night. See ya.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Cheers, buddy.
There we go. A couple of the chats that have been coming in. I didn't play these ones at the start because obviously it doesn't matter that people were away and on time, but congratulations to people who are on time tonight. Well done, Nick. And people who were early as well, and people who were 2 minutes late, but a late fee nonetheless. Thank you for Kookie and for Gold and for Mr. Arvids. There's another one here from Mr. Arvids. Actually, there's 2 more from Mr. Arvids. Settle down, son. David wants to redefine the principles because he doesn't want Māori stopping him and his corrupt mates from destroying the country for profit. Goes on to say, as tangata tiriti, I'm furious at David. This document does not only protect Māori. The document does not only protect Māori culture, it protects my culture too, the one I grew up in. Tina says, feed the beast is what we want with privatized prison systems. Tina with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. Tawhiri says, what is state care in a state that doesn't care? Philosophical there. Peter says, just want to recognise those who gave evidence to the commission. That can't have been easy. My heart goes out to all abused in state care and elsewhere. And Mata says, I know so many that haven't come forward because they are too ashamed and think they don't deserve reparations. Thank you guys for all of your super chats. Chewy, what would you like to add in, sir, if anything?
We've mentioned this study a couple of times on the show, the Dunedin study, and I know that a couple of the subjects of that had interactions with state care and that sort of thing. And in the Dunedin study being what it is, shows the lifelong tail that having any interactions with the machinery of the state in that way does to the rest of their life.
Yeah.
It breaks people. It doesn't fix, it ruins. And the fact that this study stopped at 1999, like, that's it. You know, we this is all stuff from the 50s. You know, we closed all of these institutions and that sort of stuff. It doesn't happen anymore. We're a modern scientific evidence-based government now, and this shit doesn't happen. And it fucking does.
Yeah.
And we will have another inquiry in 50 years' time and going, oh, why didn't we learn anything?
Why didn't we continue that study on and stay up to date? Yeah, no, 100%. Puku by name has sent us a super sticker. In the system we use, we don't get to see it. But if you're in YouTube chat right now, then you get a chance to see.
I can describe it. It is I believe, a pair with a sweatband on going, how's it going? It's going good.
How's it going? All right, team, we're going to move on. I mean, I don't want to brush that away. That story is going to be one of the biggest stories of the whole year. Yeah, but let's have a look at some other new. Do we need a palate cleanser? And
a lovely buttery croissant.
Okay. Really interesting looking what's happening in America at the moment. Really very interesting to see what's happening with Kamala Harris. I just want to put a little bit of news out there, a little bit of information. Some of you may have seen this, but I want to play a couple of videos as well. We've actually been pretty good with our predictions thus far, Chewy. We said that a year ago that if Biden stayed in, Biden loses. We said after the debate that Biden would be out. We also gave all the reasons as to why Kamala would be the nomination, and officially she's not yet. But one of the things is that she gets access to the $100 million war chest. Although we also said, I can't imagine that would stop a better or a different candidate coming forward, because as you've seen right here in the headline, Kamala Harris has raised $81 million in 24 hours. So a $100 million war chest is still a massive amount of money, but you can see how easily you can catch up to it and overtake it. Money is pouring in.
Oh, sorry, just before you launch into this, just another thing. Remember how we were talking about Elon Musk donating $45 million?
Heard that.
He has fucking backpedaled on that today. He's not donating to Trump for the most hilarious of reasons. He doesn't believe in a cult of personality.
Yeah. Yep. No,
Elon, that's Elon Musk.
Money is pouring in for the new Kamala Harris presidential campaign within 24 hours of President Joe Biden's decision to drop out of the 2024 presidential race and endorse Harris. More than $81 million flowed in from big and small donors, according to Harris's campaign. It's the largest sum raised and reported in a single day for either Democrat or Republican. To compare, former President Donald Trump's campaign reported bringing in about $53 million in the first 24 hours after he was convicted on 34 felony counts, a fundraising record on the Win Red platform for Republican donors. That was the record. There is another part which is really interesting about this, because now people are saying, is Kamala the right person? Will Kamala generate the excitement? Well, Kira Sanbonmantisi, a political science professor and the senior scholar at CAWP, said Harris is re-energizing the Democratic Party and inspiring first-time donors, particularly women. According to the Harris campaign, more than 888,000 donors contributed in that first 24 hours, and 60% of them were contributing in the 2024 election cycle for the first time. So she's either inspiring new people to come on board, or what she's doing is generating people that have been involved before and are now choosing to step into the fray where they hadn't previously. I got a little video to play for you here first, Chewie, and I actually think that when we talked about one of the things that Kamala Harris could bring, and look, I'm not interested in having debate about is she the best nominee. We gave all our reasons last week why she would be the nominee. She is going to be the nominee. Is there better? It's irrelevant. But we did say one of the things to have her at the top of the ticket that would be useful for is that women's reproductive rights are on the ballot this year, and her pushing back against the guy, the pussy grabbing, Roe versus Wade, getting rid of candidate could be strong. And I wanted to show you this clip. This is from when Brett Kavanaugh was being vetted. Have a listen to this 45-second conversation. This one question, she asks one question, and I know most of you will go, ooh, you ready for it? Here it comes.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer a more specific question, but
Male versus female.
there are medical procedures.
Okay. That the government has the power to make a decision about a man's body.
I thought you were asking about medical procedures that are unique to men.
I'll repeat the question. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the I don't know if we call it pedigree, but that's what she comes with. I also want to show you this, Chewie. This is her speaking yesterday, right? And there are many reports out that the right is panicking, with reports from GOP insiders saying that Trump is angry now about having JP Vance as JP, I get it wrong, but JD Vance as his running mate, because he doesn't bring anything to the table. The reason they probably got him was to shore up Trump's base rather than reaching across the aisle. And the reports are saying that he's grumpy about it. So I'll play you maybe 90 seconds of this, right? Now imagine this on billboards all over the country for Kamala Harris taking on President former President Donald Trump.
As many of you know, before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California. And before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
It's strong. It is strong. It's a strong argument. And it's going to be the run-up until November. This is what they're going to run on. And it's strong. Does it mean she gets a win? I don't know, but it's strong.
And in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his. As a young prosecutor, when I was in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office in California, I specialized in cases involving sexual abuse. Donald Trump was found liable by a jury for committing sexual abuse. As Attorney General of California, I took on one of our country's largest for-profit colleges and put it out of business. Donald Trump ran a for-profit college, Trump University, that was forced to pay $25 million to the students it scammed. As district attorney, to go after polluters, I created one of the first environmental justice units in our nation. Donald Trump stood in Mar-a-Lago and told big oil lobbyists he would do their bidding for a $1 billion campaign.
So you can see on and on and on it goes. It's a strong election drive. Will it work? Don't know, but it's strong. And the right are concerned, and they're using the wrong narratives at the moment. They're saying she's the most liberal president America will ever have. I don't think they've understood yet that probably the majority of Americans, certainly voters that are disengaged, want their politicians to go further to the left. It's pretty clear in the stats. And the other thing they're doing is they're screaming at the moment, filling up all the airwaves with how dare they roll Joe Biden, rather than going, uh-oh, they roll Joe Biden, how do we take on Kamala Harris? It's a very interesting time, Cherry. I just wanted to put all that out in front of us.
I've seen some very clumsy social media campaigns at the moment to write in Joe Biden in November on the ballot, just hand write him in. And it's so obviously just spoiling campaigns. I don't think the Republican Party really has an answer to this, because their candidate put up in a debate or any sort of, he's just going to get destroyed. There are always going to be people that vote for Trump. He has a core segment of the American population that don't give a shit what reality is. Donald Trump's his man, and they project whatever they want onto him. But I think for those people that were in the middle and going, I don't know, he seems a little crazy, a little rapey, a little bit fraudstery for me, maybe I'll sit this one out. Is that maybe this is just like you have a choice of sanity or insanity. Maybe Kamala is young enough and focused on the issues that younger people are, that she will engage those voters to vote for her that weren't engaged by Biden. You know, it's a weird system. There's a lot there that just doesn't make any sense to us here in New Zealand. But I think this is a more rational choice than Biden was.
Yeah. Oh, completely. I mean, Biden's in, but they lose. Kamala's in. Some of the polls don't really matter now, but some of them have put her ahead of Trump already. Some of them have got Trump ahead of Biden, and they haven't done Kamala one-on-one yet. It doesn't matter. None of that matters, but what it means is it's back to being a close. I mean, under Biden, it wasn't going to be close, my prediction. Under her, it's going to be close. Could Trump still win? Yeah. Yeah, he could, but dude, I mean, like popcorn night when they have their first debate, she will decimate him. She will decimate Donald Trump. And the only thing worse than him being decimated is being decimated by a black woman. So for him, the only thing worse for him.
Few comments in the chat just questioning me on the term a little bit rapey. I mean, Donald Trump's a rapist.
He's been convicted.
Just in case that's unclear, Donald Trump is a rapist.
Not criminally liable, but he's been found liable of rape. So he is a convicted rapist, not criminally convicted. What do they use another term? He's had but he's been found guilty in a civil case for sexual assault. So yes, and look, even if he hadn't done that, he was very clear about grabbing women by the pussy. Just that in and of itself, his own words, you're a little bit rapey, without question. Mata says Democrats believe each donor represents voters. They may lose if she is not the nominee. She will be the nominee now, because apart from anything else, I think the convention's in 3 weeks, and then after that, they don't have enough time to get like 4 or 5 people up to it now.
It's such a short runway.
Yeah, she's the nominee.
That it is going to be a clean sweep at the Democratic convention. It is just going to be a united front.
Yeah.
I heard a good name suggested for her VP. I think it's Mike Kelly. I think I got that right. Former astronaut, Gulf War veteran. I mean, if you had that on the VP ticket, he's a fucking astronaut.
Yeah.
He's been to space.
Gold says, I would love to see Biden hand over the aviators to Harris, passing on the dark Brandon name and mean just like the dread pirate Roberts.
And just toddle off stage licking an ice cream.
Caleb says Musk is still giving Trump $45 million via super PACs a month, but he is hedging his PR bets as Kamala appears to be a real possibility. Don't fall for Musk's attempt to hide his political manipulation. Yeah, Musk's been interesting. He did an interview or a podcast with Jordan Peters, is that his name, this week? The guy who sounds like Kermit the Frog, where he made it very clear why he is very anti a lot of the LGBT community, specifically the trans community. He says in the interview, my son is dead because of the woke mind virus. He has a child who is a trans woman who wants nothing to do with him.
What a fucking dirtbag.
And he says in this interview, and I'm paraphrasing, but I know the quote's pretty close, that he wants to eliminate the woke mind virus. And now put that on top of what happens on Twitter. Right now you get to see what his agenda is. He literally said it in the interview. I was thinking about playing it, but yeah, we'll go. And we've got from JC and the Pigeon Cats, thank you for your super chat. Trump and Musk are a warning to society. Stop creating billionaires. You ain't gonna like them. And Rajan has just joined in. Late fee, just got back from Deadpool and Wolverine. Oh, there you go.
Oh, you've seen it early.
Yeah.
Oh, no, hang on. What's today? Wednesday. Oh, yeah. Opening night. Nice.
All right. Now, we've got a bunch of stuff from the working group to go, but I can see the time. I might cut a clip or two out because I've got too many because that was so much fun. Is there anything else you want to get into what we've just talked about before I move on?
No. No, okay. Let's crack on because the time is creeping.
Let's start off the conversation from the working group last night. There was so much good stuff. And I mean, to be honest with you, all of my clips come before the 30-minute mark. So it's only the first half of the show. But they were talking about tax cuts and borrowing. And there's a really interesting situation. We've seen him do this before about Damien Grant running away. Last week he did it when Simon Wilson told him not to shout. And Damien Grant said, but how do I get our ratings? So he made a stupid joke, but it was a running away situation. He does it again here when the bomber and the team are talking about borrowing for tax cuts, and they're using the 4-year plan. And so he basically discounts it altogether because they use the 4-year plan. We're only talking about a 1-year plan, even though you can very easily see the 4-year plan divided by 4, it's still is still the situation. They're talking about tax cuts, they're talking about borrowing, and they're talking about the numbers around Health New Zealand.
FUQ, follow-up question. The minister says we can't afford $1.4 billion for health, but we could borrow $14 billion for tax cuts. Again, is the electorate dumb enough to fall for this?
Well, the tax cuts, I don't think the tax cuts were costing $14 billion, or was that $14 billion?
We borrowed $14 billion for the tax cuts. That's what we borrowed.
Over what time period?
The 4 years. That was the 4 years.
And how much additional? The 1.4 was for what time period?
1 year.
12 months. Okay, so right there, Bob.
So rather than being honest and going, okay, so it's more like $3.5 to $4 billion per year, he chooses to go, you're talking about 4 years, we're talking about a year. It's not a valid question. Honestly, you watch the runaway. It's ridiculous.
The 1.4 was for what time period?
1 year.
12 months. Okay, so right there, Bomber, I think that just goes, your entire analysis, you're not interested in the facts, you want to paint a narrative.
So $1.4 billion out of $4 billion.
How am I meant to respond to your data when you simply make stuff up? You are comparing apples with rotten mandarins.
Michael, you have spearheaded the union's lawfare.
Bomber actually really did him a favour there to not show off his absolutely... I mean, that was running away. Because rather than dividing it by 4, he just said, that's not what we're looking at, and ran away.
Campaign against this government's public service slash and burn agenda. We've seen it with Etu at TVNZ, and we're seeing it in the Ministry of Education with the PSA. Will the minister manage to sack 3,000 jobs while hiding behind a commissioner without the unions fighting back? Because that's what they're hoping for.
Well, it's galaxy level bullshit on the most basic analysis. So just take the core figures that you've quoted there, $1.3 billion. Now, if the average salary...
I don't mean to interrupt us, obviously, but I really want to highlight how important this part of the conversation is, right? How important it is and what horseshit is coming out from this national-led government.
That you've quoted there, $1.3 billion. Now, if the average salary of a middle manager at Health New Zealand was $200,000, which it won't be, that's 7,000 people. So you can fire 3,000 and you won't even be halfway there. It's just made up stuff. It is just made up stuff. And actually Aisha Verrill has revealed and confirmed today that actually a lot of the cost that's being dealt with here is around dealing with pay equity and getting the extra nurses in that we need to make the system work.
Right.
So what it is the government underfunding what are actually quite fundamental and basic parts of delivering health services.
Why should voters accept a government who purposely underfunded public health and manufacturer funding crisis? If it's not that Health New Zealand is spending too much, it's because National refused to budget what they are spending.
Well, that's quite right. And what people I need to remember, and I'm sure will remember, is that this was a government led by Christopher Luxon that prior to the election was very clear and stood on many platforms and said that there will be no cuts to any frontline services. We're seeing that in health, we're seeing that in education, we're seeing it with budget services, we're seeing it with food banks, we're seeing it in customs.
And
right
again, Mr. Grant's about to come in and show his whole ass.
Those tax cuts, those $14 billion of tax cuts, and that figure's not made up. That's what the government has booked for them, has to be paid somehow. And this is the cost.
So where is the cuts to frontline health and education? Because what you just said, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that this government is cutting doctors, nurses, teachers. Is that what you're saying?
What I've just said is you can't cut $1.3 billion out of health without cutting into frontline. I've just given you the figures as to how you could possibly get there. It's 7,000 people being paid $200,000 a year. There's not that much fat. You could cut all of the middle management out and you'd still have to cut.
But it's because they've underfunded the amount. They've underfunded it.
So it's entirely possible that they're not going to get the level of savings that they want.
Hang on. Now, see, this is the other trick these guys are doing. They're going, okay, I know National's saying this. Let's just accept that this is not what they're going to get. No. The party of business, the party of numbers, the last guys were the guys that got all their numbers wrong. You can't just sit there and go, okay. So let's just say that they're having a guesstimate and they're not going to quite get there. Sorry, Mr. Grant, you don't get to do that whilst you hold the last lot accountable for not knowing their fucking numbers.
So it's entirely possible that they're not going to get the level of savings that they want. right? So they've gone out there and said, we want to save 7 billion, what, blah, blah, blah. But, and like a lot of politics in New Zealand, the announcement is the thing, right? It doesn't matter what we do, it's just is what we announce. So I think we can discard what he says.
But you don't bring Lester
We just
Levy
discard what they said.
Mr. Cut the health service down to size and get it ready for commercialisation in the 1990s as someone just to sort of waffle on. He's a guy, whatever you think of them, who's there to do stuff. So I don't quite accept what you've just said.
But at the moment, we have seen no cuts to doctors, no cuts to nurses, no cuts to...
That's such a false argument. It's such a false argument.
But it hasn't happened.
And it's a false argument because you say, they haven't cut the doctor. No, what they haven't done is they haven't afforded and budgeted for an extra doctor to also be there as the population goes up. That's the problem.
Okay.
They haven't funded any of that.
I'll just add one more thing, and I'm sure Craig's got a lot he can add to this. Remember, of course...
It just looks like Craig is starting to boil. Just the way he's moving, it's like, okay, I've got spreadsheets, and I need it now.
One of the things that they didn't do this year, they said they would do is deal to the cancer drugs, and the way that they've then fixed up that political schmozzle has been to pinch money from forward budgets. So this is a problem that will only get worse.
And just in case you missed that pronunciation, because it was a bit garbled, to pinch money from forward budgets, from the future. So this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, this is how we run the show, Chewie. I kind of go blah, 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 blah during the clip, and then I shut up and you wrap up. So what would you like to say about the first clip?
Damien Grant is outclassed.
Yeah, very much so.
He is.
Yep.
He has gone into this fight completely unarmed. He's hiding behind the shield that is his deeply held principles, which is trying to fend off a guy with a sword with your mum's best tea saucer, I guess. It's hilarious. It's indefensible. And I'm here for it. Damien, continue. Please keep doing this.
And look, Craig's about to release the beast, talking about the czar, as we're calling the commissioner, and cuts. This is just a 90-second clip.
Craig, using commissioners to take over the entire public health system is an unbelievable act by this government that is serious and demanding of scrutiny, especially when that government is calling for 3,000 jobs. How will taking $130 million each month out of public health do anything other than cause social carnage on those dependent upon that public health?
Well, it's worse than $130 million a month. So that's $1.5 billion across the forecast period, across the year. But if we look at, the government's crowed a lot about putting $1.6 odd billion into health this year. The majority of that is paying for the Holidays Act. So the majority of that is just simply back pay that was owed. The new operational funding, net operational funding increases into health this year was 90.
I'm just going to highlight something. Damien Grant's very quiet right now. I just wonder why there's not much of a pushback.
Look, he's a tactical genius, a titan of intellect. He's just biding his time.
Okay.
Like he's waiting for his moment to strike, I'm sure.
He's about to pounce. Well,
is that right, Damien?
We'll see.
Net operational funding increases into health this year was $94 million. 0.4% increase. So on a net basis, there's no new money going in. Now you think about the population growth that's happened. You think about the need that changes, because every year it's not just new people.
Of course, Damien's looking a little bit uncomfortable now as well. I'm just, I don't know if Damien realizes this new camera cut they've got there. They're always on because he's squirming. I think that's the correct terminology.
I actually worked out what he's writing on his pad too. And it's hard on that angle, but I spent some time doing it, and it's like he's writing, "Oh shit, I'm fucked. I have nothing."
Okay. Well, I mean, we could be wrong. We'll have a look.
Mum, come and pick me up. These people are mean.
There we go.
You think about the need that changes, because every year it's not just new people.
Of course.
It's increasing levels of old people. It's increasing levels of need. Medical services get more expensive every year. And inflation goes up every year. So as a consequence, we know they need lots more money, and that's not what's happened at this budget. Ministry of Health Services, I mean, you agree with them or disagree with them, they've been cut by 18%. So the actual ministry has gone by 18%. And if you want a signal of where the government's priorities are and really understanding sort of the language behind this. We're spending $30.1 million over 4 years on security guards and A&E. New money on security guards and A&E. We're spending $20.1 million on new doctors.
Wow.
So we're spending more money on new security guards than we are on new doctors.
Chewy, yours, sir.
Fuck, that's devastating.
Yeah.
Like, to the point of being indefensible. Absolutely indefensible. It's an indictment on our government. It's an indictment on our society. Like, you have security guards in your hospitals because people are getting angry.
Yeah.
Because they've been sitting in A&E for 9+ hours.
Yeah. So rather than fixing that problem, rather than fixing that problem, they get the sticking tape to put over it, being security guards to probably turf people out if they get frustrated and angry.
You are giving public health money to a private security company. Does that make anybody really angry? Makes me really angry. We need more nurses. We need more junior doctors. That takes more money. We need to pay them well to keep their knowledge and experience here and not have it fuck off to Australia. These guys don't get it. They see the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
What happens when someone writes down, "Oh shit, I've got nothing," where they quite often then go to is xenophobia. So in this next clip, we're going to hear all about the terrible third world doctors that this government's going to have to bring in to replace it. That's a very clear message that comes out from Damien Grant. You know, because you got to throw in there also fearful of those doctors that may have a different colour skin than us coming from overseas. And the other thing that I really want to highlight from this clip is I'm not taking the piss. He says this. He complains about phoning Health New Zealand and someone not picking the phone up. At the same time, him wanting to get rid of all the people in the back office who would be the people answering the phones. He can hold those two thoughts in his head somewhat for some reason. This starts off, though, with them talking about when did this government know that these numbers, they're talking about $130 million a month, when did they know? That's where we're going to start.
No, for me, the question is, when did they know that they needed to cut $130 million a month? Because this is not a new story. Last March, Te Whatu Ora officials were telling the Health Select Committee that the amount of money the government then promised at the budget was not enough.
Right. That's
so
right.
they knew in advance. So there's a real...
So let's just take...
So hang on a second. If I can just give you one more number as well, which will be of interest to you, Damien, because I know you're a consumer. We're paying for some of this because we put tobacco taxes back up. Because we're delivering $1.5 billion across the forecast period, across 4 years, in new tobacco taxes, which costs 5,000 lives a year.
Yeah. Follow-up question.
So, hold on, no. I just want to
jump in here.
I like it when Damien Grant so confidently wants to come in, and then he doesn't obviously realise what's coming out. But you got to applaud them when they're confident. I mean, give them some credit for being confident.
I want to drill down on this. So it doesn't really matter how much money we spend on doctors, does it? Because we don't have them.
It makes an enormous difference how much money we spend on doctors. It makes an enormous difference how much money we spend on a health service.
How many new doctors are we training every year?
We'll be training an additional
200.
We'll be training an additional 25 after this particular program, but we also bring a lot of new doctors every year into the health system.
Okay, so at the moment we have a health system an educational system that trains doctors. I think is it 200 doctors a year, or is it maybe?
I'll take you for. I don't know.
It could be 400.
Yep.
I don't know. I may be confusing the dentist. Anyway, we train a very small number of doctors. The vast majority of those doctors immediately go overseas because they can get a whole pile of additional money. It's nothing to do with student loans. It's simply the amount of money that you can earn. We then bring in a whole bunch of doctors.
So what he just said is we're not paying our doctors in New Zealand enough. That's what he's just said. Without saying it, that's what he's just said.
Yeah.
Simply the amount of money that you can earn. We then bring in a whole bunch of doctors from God only knows where, So some of them I'm sure are excellent and some of them are terrible.
You know, I'm not racist. I have some Maori friends. Some of my friends are Maori. They're excellent. You know, we're just I'm sure that some of these doctors from God knows where, and this is not the worst part. He does mention the third world countries, I'm sure.
So some of them I'm sure are excellent and some of them are terrible. But the fundamental problem is that there simply aren't enough doctors, and if we are getting doctors in, we're probably pinching them from some third world country anyway. Which is so all we're doing is.
But none of that, Damien. But none of that, Damien, is an excuse for then spending less money than we should be.
Amen. Amen. We need to bond those doctors. I agree with you. Craig, follow-up question.
No, that is not the follow-up question. That's where we're wrapped up with there. Yeah, so just, sprinkle a little bit of xenophobia in there, and because nothing good comes from a third world country, Chewy. So they've got to be terrible, and some of them will be fine, but they're going to be terrible. But some of them will be fine. I've got a friend from a third world country, so I can say that. Chewy.
It's also this fantastic assumption that someone could just rock up at the border and go, "I'm a doctor," and we don't look into their qualifications at all.
Yeah, I'm a terrible one, but I am one.
Any time requalifying or having it just doesn't happen. They're just given the keys to the hospital and gone, wow, can you bring your own white coat from home? We really need doctors. But yes, hang on. There's
a really important question. Do third world countries have white coats? I mean, maybe they come with like a flax coat, or that's probably what he'd expect, wouldn't it? Like a made of leaves or something. Wouldn't that be what Damien Grant would expect?
I would assume.
Yeah.
I love it when Damien Grant stumbles onto a point, gets up, brushes himself off, and carries on without learning fucking anything. There could be an argument there of like, why don't we keep all the doctors that we train? Because they make more money. Okay, cool, Damien. Why do they need to make more money? Because they've got student loans. Fantastic. Is that something that we could do? Is that something that we can go, hey, look, we really need, this is a core thing that we need. More doctors and more nurses and more teachers and more police. And we need to keep them here. What's something that we could do? What's something we could easily do? Fucking get rid of their student loans, you absolute nonce.
Or pay them more.
That'll
so
work.
Close.
One or the other.
Yeah,
One or
he's
the
so
other.
Close. He's the gift that keeps on giving. I said this last week. All right. I've just written up this clip as some more truth by Craig. So let's go listen to Craig Renney spitting some truth.
Now, Craig, if Health New Zealand with the tobacco industry, would this government be sacking staff?
This is the question for the night, their poll. If Health New Zealand was the tobacco industry, would the government be sacking staff? That's their poll that they ran through the night.
People being cut now.
Craig, if Health New Zealand with the tobacco industry, would this government be sacking staff?
Absolutely not. Health spending per person this year is going to fall in real terms $223 per person.
I love having you on the show.
But one final number, just for Damien here. Health spending, the number of employees as a proportion of the overall workforce that are in the public sector. That was 20% under Chris Hipkins, 20% under Jacinda Ardern, 20% under Bill English, under John Key, under Helen Clark, under Jenny Shipley.
Yes.
It was 20%. I can go back to 1994 when it was 30.
Sorry,
it's
Craig,
20%.
The 20% is what? Sorry, just
20% of all of the employees.
Just quietly, they were talking over each other. The bomber said, "What is it now?" And he said, "It's 20%." So it's exactly what it's been for the past 30 or 40 years.
Sorry, Craig,
20%.
The 20% is what? Sorry, just
20% of all of the employees in the workforce are public sector employees,
and that's been the same.
Since basically it was actually a bit higher. It was 30% in 1994.
So just help me. So you're not talking about core public servants. It must be because there's only about 45,000 of those.
Yes, but all of the people that you complain about who work in areas outside of the core public service.
Oh, you mean doctors, teachers?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Sorry, I understand. Sorry,
it takes them a while to get. Yeah.
Well, okay, all right. So keep going with the story. Sorry, Craig.
So essentially, when people complain about this explosion
it's not really true, is it?
It's not true at all. All that's happened is the number of workers has grown. The number of workers in the public sector has grown at the same rate.
The only people who get hysterical are the taxpayers union. I wonder why. Quick round pop.
So there you go, Chewy. Another piece of the evidence that we've been saying for a long time is that there is no explosion. that the differential between public servants in the past and public servants today is nothing. But like we talked about yesterday within various media cycles in America, the narrative they've sold has been picked up on, has been believed, and now we're talking about a bloated bureaucracy. It's not true. It's not true. I've got one more clip to play, but you got anything else, sir?
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge something that's bubbling away in the comments there. Talking about how good Michael Wood is, and it was a shame that he had to leave Parliament. This is part of the reason why I was so fucking angry for doing the big stupid thing and having to leave.
Yeah,
like he's a very effective dude. This is why I can't understand why he dragged his ass and made Chippy look like a fucking idiot for literal months. Very frustrating.
As you often do, without knowing it whatsoever, is you predict the following clip or piece I'm going to show, because this is a bit where Michael Wood actually talks about what Labor did when it comes to child poverty, because that's obviously a big criticism of the right at the moment as well, how Labor did nothing. And this is Michael Wood speaking to that. We've got about 2 minutes here.
We made progress. Under the two Labor governments, one of the things we did actually manage to achieve was to largely stop income inequality from growing, dramatically reduce child poverty. And that was largely through income transfers, working for families, stabilising and growing the state housing stock, and policies at the lower end of incomes policy, things like the minimum wage.
But it's not enough, is it?
But it's not enough.
The structural problem of neoliberal capitalism continues to destroy the egalitarian dream. And yet the Labour Party were the ones who bore this. Oh, you're loving this, so just let me go. The Labour Party was the creation. This is the 40th year. At some point, will the left pause and go, what the fuck happened there?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, we've got a country in which structurally for 30 or 40 years, we have had things that haven't been addressed. We did make a serious start in all those areas that I talked about.
First great steps, but they've all been wiped out in 100 days of this crazy new government.
This is really important for me to say, because one of the political attacks of this government is that the previous government didn't do anything about child poverty. Wrong on every measurable thing that we put in the budget and measured every year in the budget. We've reduced child poverty.
Yep.
But it's not enough.
Except the last budget where the numbers got worse, didn't they, Mr. Wood?
In this budget. That's right.
The truth is...
Such confidence. Such confidence. You have to congratulate. Because if you say something loud enough, even if you're not right, people believe you. Such confidence. Imagine his school report. Doesn't matter what his grade was for the actual thing, but the effort would always be an A.
Numbers got worse, didn't they, Mr. Wood?
In this budget. That's right.
The last Grant Robinson budget, the numbers for child poverty got worse.
No,
I don't think that's right.
On your own measures, that is exactly true.
So you're working.
The numbers got worse in the last budget, in the budgets that led to that.
The last Grant Robinson budget.
No, the last Grant Robinson budget was not. No, the numbers were still heading in the right direction. The only time the numbers turned was at this BEFU, this Budget Economic and Fiscal Update, where the numbers turned, and we were missing all three of the major targets for child poverty.
But look, if I can just finish off. We were the government that took those steps, that brought in fair pay agreements, removed from play at the moment, but they will be back, which was a fundamental attempt to say that we have a labour market that has been rigged away from the needs of working people. That's something we started to fix, and we will get back to.
The working group, my friends, and as you can see, why we've only done half the show. It was dense with information last night. A bunch of super chats and stuff that have come in, Chewy, but sir, other than us having a new bromance with Craig Renney and maybe even Michael Wood, what are your thoughts?
Absolute cracking show from the working group. And as always, a pleasure to see the BHN pre-show crowd just absolutely dominating their chat. Well done indeed. Damien Grant walking head first, teeth first into a haymaker that everybody else saw coming is something that will lull me into a deep and peaceful sleep tonight. Thank you, Damien.
Yeah, you're welcome. Kiwi Bird, can I pay you to stream longer? Well, we've done all the clips actually, so we kind of fitted it in. I don't think didn't feel like we rushed that. It just kind of fell naturally.
New Zealand's premier 90-minute hour.
Harris has won the Democratic nomination. Unless this is breaking news while West Beyond, she's got the number of delegates she needs, but she hasn't got the nomination until the conference. Like that's where they get the nomination. So Trump has become the nominee last week. He wasn't. That's why they call him the presumptive nominee. Yeah. So she may be the presumptive nominee. She has the number of delegates she needs, but I don't think she can officially be the nominee until unless something's happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. Longer stream fee. Kiwi Bird says $1 an extra minute of streaming. We should remember this in the future, Chewy. Woonbing says classic whataboutism from the convicted fraudster. Peter says, thank you for the subject, by the way. Peter says Craig would make a great MP. Matt says, thank you, Pat, the sleeping dog, Chewy, and Kiwi Skirt. Thanks for providing an excellent show. Left is best. Oh, thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, we should always mention Kiwi Skirt. Kiwi Skirt helps us out and does probably more work than either of us do, Chewy, if we're honest about it. Maybe, perhaps. And Tafari says, even Winston calls out Labour's neoliberalism. That's the super chats. Anything else you want to add in there? I was going to talk about a woman going to jail because her dog was fat, but we can keep that for another night.
That was a very fat dog. I saw that story.
But, look, I'm going to sound like a boomer now, but what about parents with fat kids? I mean, they send an owner of a fat dog to prison. What about how people look after their kids and exercise and nourishment? I know it's not quite the same because you don't have autonomy over your child, but I thought it was interesting that they gave her jail time. Yeah, okay, you can get a fine or whatever. She went to jail for 2 months.
She's also banned from owning a dog for 1 year.
Yeah, 12 months. So 1 year and 1 day, she'll get a new one out there. She's a feeder. She'll start being the feeder again.
It was a 53-kilogram dog that died like a couple of months after being taken into care by the SPCA because his liver exploded. So, yeah, bad. Look.
It's a sausage. And the reason
it makes me sad. Like,
of course.
It's also its name is Nuggy. Sad chuckle.
Poor dog.
Yeah, poor dog.
Poor dog.
Your dog doesn't look like a sausage roll. It looks like a croissant.
You right, mate?
And as we established on the show last night, you are stingy on the snacks, so you won't be going to jail.
I am not stingy on the snacks. My dog gets the appropriate amount of sustenance needed to run a border collie that's 19.95 kilos.
That's a lot of words for I am stingy on the snacks.
Well, the thing is, we went away when Dad died. We were away for like 9 days. The people who looked after her, this is without word of a lie, put 4 kilos on her in 9 days. She went up by 4 kilos. And actually, I don't really care in general, but yeah, I mean, like, especially purebreds, which she's supposed to be. I mean, no papers or anything. Their joints and stuff are often bad as it is. So, we just spent the next year giving her the appropriate amount. And she's back to her svelte running amount. Weight, 19.9.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking about my dog. Dog can go away now. It's like,
No, it's all a tool to just shame you. We got a show tomorrow. Are we going to do Discord?
Maybe we should. Yeah. I mean, like, normally what happens, just for people, is that when we're too lazy to put a decent show together, we just rely on Discord. It's not true. It's not true. It really does.
It's a little bit true, though.
No, what it comes down to is the Discord is enjoyable and we get it and we like doing it. But if we've got a really full show of other stuff as well, we have to decide sometimes, what we do and what we don't do. So yeah, maybe not. Probably. I mean, if we want to commit to it now, we can. And we just have a couple of stories if they're big, juicy ones. But we go from there.
So unless the world explodes, maybe we'll try and do Discord tomorrow.
Okay. That sounds like fun. One night, maybe we should do a Ask Us Anything night. We did that a couple of months ago.
It's been a while since we've done that, actually.
Yeah.
And we got a few new names in the chat and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Maybe do an Ask Us
Anything.
Do that. Actually, it was longer than that because it was when I picked up my EV. And that was like April since we've done an Ask Us Anything.
Yeah, it's been months.
Let's do that. Let's do that. We'll do an Ask Us Anything tomorrow night as well. Anything else to wrap up with the whānau before I hit some buttons?
No, I think that's it.
Pick up the news, big Harry style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand. No time for cheese, just act straight up. Plan and chew, never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar.
Got a bit dizzy doing that for a second.
Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and chew, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team. Thanks for joining us tonight. Remember, be a patron. Go on, be a patron. Double dare ya. Double dirty dog dare ya.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And remember, you've got a week, because we're giving you to the end of July, which is next Wednesday, the 31st, to get your theme tunes in. I've got a few that have come in. We'll take some more up until next Wednesday. And then maybe tomorrow during the AMA, we can play a couple of the examples. There you go. We've got some ideas there. Go to our Facebook page or my Twitter feed to see the details on how to win $500 by designing us a theme tune, Chewy.
That's right. You should do it. All the cool kids
team.
are doing it.
All right. Love you to bits. We'll see you next time. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.